Good evening. My name is Adela Weinbrock. I am a 9-year board member, 5 as chair at Ferrisburg Central School, and now a newly elected board member to the recently formed Addison Northwest Unified Union Board. Last town meeting, our 5 towns of Addison, Ferrisburg, Virgins, Panton, and Waltham voted to alter our board structure to a unified union. One board responsible for K-12 programming, instead of our present model of 5 separate boards within the Addison Northwest Supervisory Union, all working toward a common goal, but independently. Now, a quick glance at 252 might lead one to conclude that 252 reflects this model. I would like to argue that it does not. The proposed model is top-down, taking boards and community members out of the equation. Changes need to be made in our educational delivery system, but we, local community people, need to be active participants in this process. Please give consideration to the PELTS concept that is also on the table. Work with boards to exact change. Boards are out there working hard to exact efficiencies while providing quality educational programming. 252 has significant potential for unintended consequences that will undermine the progress that we have worked so hard to achieve. The PELTS concept endorses a more collaborative effort that you have people out there in the communities working towards. Thank you.
My name is Tom O'Brien. I'm the superintendent of schools for the Addison Northwest Supervisory Union that represents the great towns of Addison, Ferrisburg, Panton, Waltham, and Virgins. This is my 8th year in that position. I'm not going to repeat a lot of what went before, but I do want you to know that I strongly support the voluntary merger language included in Peter Peltz's proposal, and I do not support the top-down approach being presented in 252 that would call for 15 or 16 districts statewide. There's a reason why the state of Maine, our neighbors not too far distant, are finding themselves and their school districts in a bit of chaos. And that's primarily because it was a top-down approach. There's a reason why in this state for the past 2 years, more than 90% of school districts have passed their local budgets despite strong opposition from the state administration. There's a very good reason why in our district we were able to do what heretofore has not been thought possible, and that is to take 7 school districts and through local work, local discussion, local care, form one school district. We've gone from large supervisory union with 8 school boards and 8 bodies to 1. That is unheard of. So I offer you that opportunity, and I ask you to consider the following that was sent to me by my board chair, the high school board chair, and also the chairperson of our Unified Union Subcommittee, Kristen Driscoll. To merge districts that are different in their education, business, and administrative styles would create chaos long before any efficiencies were realized, if at all. As a result, our children's education would surely suffer. In that regard, I urge you to consider legislation that allows for voluntary mergers, and in so doing, respect the local involvement in changes being sought. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Sperry Wilson. I grew up in Stratford and attended the Newton School. I returned to Stratford as an adult with my children so that they too could attend the Newton School. I'm starting my 5th year on the Stratford School Board and my 3rd year as its chair. I'm also starting my 2nd year on the Board of Trustees of our designated high school, Thetford Academy. Excellence in education in our town is no accident. Decades of unanimously approved school budgets, top NECAP scores, increasing student population, and a strong integrated K-8 curriculum bear this out. Bringing the will of the voters to action through our board work is accomplishing real change every day, every month, every year. Knowing that we as board members are accessible to teachers, neighbors, students, parents, and voters every day mirrors the true spirit of Vermont government. Small, open public meetings are welcoming to members of the community. They know that they will be heard and considered when they bring matters of importance before our board. Losing that local level of control and participation will further remove government from people. It will not improve the education of our children, and we have yet to see any number crunching to prove that it will fix the budget shortfall. We have in recent years been more involved in a collaborative efforts through the Orange-Windsor Supervisory Union, sharing in busing contracts, fuel oil contracts, and even in multi-school music concerts. Together, the schools in our SU are making that happen, but it is no easy task. It is not a quick fix. These relationships need to be nurtured constantly over years of frequent exposure and cannot be dictated by a map drawn up hastily in Montpelier. Will redistricting and consolidating save money while also improving education in Vermont? I urge you not to choose the promise of one at the expense of the other. In our town meeting last week, the voters unanimously approved a non-binding resolution. My colleague, friend, and Vice Chair Todd Benson will now read it into the record. Thank you.
Todd Benson.
I've served on the Stratford board for a number of years, and I currently also serve on the board of the Orange-Windsor Supervisory Union. As Sperry said at town meeting, our community passed a resolution that I would like to read at this time. It reads, whereas the most important task of this community is to raise our children to be respectful and healthy contributors to our community and to society, we as parents, neighbors, teachers, and members of the Stratford community take responsibility for each child's well-being and development by virtue of being part of the community. We as a community support the education of these children with our tax dollars, time, and energy, as has been done for generations. We, through our duly elected school board, have local control of our own K-8 school. We have defended and maintained our right to inspect and determine the school budget, to review school programs, and make hiring decisions at the local level. We as a community have decided to support the needs of the individual student by allowing parents the option to petition the school board to send a child to a school other than the designated school. The bills before the Vermont legislature, S-252 and H-755, do not contain language presently that adequately protects our ability as a community to maintain our current level of self-determination for our local schools. The primary objective of these bills is to consolidate school districts into larger entities and is in opposition to local control. Strong, explicit language must be added to either of these bills to ensure that towns like Stratford can maintain local control. And whereas Stratford can lose its autonomy to make local decisions about education if these bills are allowed to pass in their present form, now therefore we urge the legislature to include the following in any educational bill that is to be considered for vote. 1, allow each town to maintain its own school board and control over K-12 education if they so choose. 2, allow the school board of each town to designate a high school for its residents. And 3, allow individual school boards to grant exceptions to tuition students to any public or independent semi-private school based on the guidelines of its choosing.
Thank you.
Perfect time.
Milmore with Mary Daly on deck.